everyone, welcome. This is Satvik from Build Fast with AI. Today we are going to talk about the newly released Llama 3 models by Meta. These are not just any models, these are the best open source models that are available in the world today. And this is probably a significant moment in the history of open source AI. We will talk more about why that is and other details in this particular blog, and we will also write some code to test these models as well. Let us jump right into it. We have the new version of Llama 3.1 models. They have released in three versions, which is a 405 model, which is a 400 billion parameter model, a 70 billion parameter model, and a 8 billion parameter model. So the first version of Llama, which is Llama 3. The first version of Llama 3 was released in April of this year. So they have already released these two models in the month of April 24. Currently, they have upgraded these two models as well. So they have upgraded these two models, and this is the first version of the model that we have. So 3.1 405 is the first time we are seeing a 400 billion parameter model from Meta. This model is actually defeating a lot of closed source models in many benchmarks. So let us look at more detail. Okay, this is the blog. So let me just scroll down. And I really like the first paragraph written in this particular article. Open source models have mostly been trailing behind the closed counterparts, and Llama 3.1 405 model actually changes it, right? And they also mention it very clearly in the next paragraph as well, where they mention that this is the first openly available model that rivals top AI models. So when they say top AI models, they are likely meaning to say GPT-4 model by OpenAI and 3.5 Sonnet model. So this particular open source model actually beats these models in multiple metrics, which we will look at shortly. And this is not the only update that we got from the release yesterday. So one great news was that they have already upgraded the versions of the 8 billion and 70 billion parameter models, which they released in April. Earlier, the context window of those models was only 8K. Now it has a context window of 128K, which is a lot. And even these models have significantly performed well in the benchmarks as well. So that with that, let me proceed to the next model evaluations page and talk a little bit about their pricing as well. First, let us look at the comparison of Llama 3.1 400 billion parameter model and the GPT models as well as the Claude model. So we have Nemotron model, which is an open source model by NVIDIA, but the main competition is among Llama 3 400 billion parameter model, the new version of GPT-4, and the Claude 3.5 Sonnet. If you look at this, there are multiple benchmarks that we have, and this is the first time that we have an open source model which is beating the model on multiple benchmarks. So we had many models which defeated GPT-4 or Claude 3.5 Sonnet on particular evaluations or metrics. But this is the first time we are having a general purpose model which is beating the closed source counterparts in many metrics at a time. That being said, let me go to the other evals that are given for the 3.1 models for 8B and 70B versions. So if you look at it closely, the 8 billion parameter model, which is the smallest model, actually beats GPT 3.5 Turbo in almost all the metrics, right? And 8 billion parameter is a small model that you can download on your laptop and use it locally. So imagine the power of running a very intelligent model like this fully locally. Now that we looked at the metrics, so let me talk a little bit about the pricing of these models, which is also very interesting. So if you look at the pricing of these models, the Llama 3 model is available as an API by multiple providers. And this model costs around $3 per million tokens. So if you want to generate million tokens, you are spending around $3 for this on Fireworks API. So there are other providers which are slightly more costlier, but you can get this model for $3 per million tokens. For comparison, both GPT-4 Omni and Claude 3.5 Sonnet cost you around $15 per million tokens. That means you have a better model at 1/5 of the price, right? So that is crazy. And you can also see one interesting pricing trend with these models as well. So if you take any provider, the rough cost of the 8 billion parameter model is around $0.8, $0.08, while GPT 3.5 Turbo costs around $1.5. So you see that the difference between the difference between these particular models is also very great. One thing that we need to understand is the cost of intelligence is actually falling down quite a bit. So the initial version of GPT-4 used to cost around $60 to $120 in some cases, but you are able to get similar amount of intelligence at just $3, right? Which is almost 1 by 40 times of what we used to pay not very long ago. So that is how fast the development is happening in this particular space. And we also look at this interesting part of human evaluation. So they have compared the Llama 3.1 model with different versions of GPT-4, and they have also compared it with 3.5 Sonnet. So for a open source model, you see that it's scoring better than Claude 3.5 Sonnet. It is slightly trailing behind the GPT-4 initial version, and it loses by 10 points, but we can still say that this is a very good evaluation, not just for an open source model, for any model in general. So now that we have basic information about what these models are and how now that we have a basic understanding of the details of this particular model, so let us just jump into the code and test these models. Let's say if you don't want to test these models using code, you can directly go to meta.ai. You can directly go to meta.ai and you can chat with the model right away. But currently I'm interested in code, so let me just open the code and show you how to run this model. Okay, I have the code open. For this particular case, I'm going to use Langchain. So I have installed Langchain OpenAI library. You might be wondering why I'm using OpenAI library. I'm going to use Llama 3 model from Fireworks provider, which is OpenAI compatible. So you can use OpenAI package to actually run this model. So I've already installed this before. I'll just initiate the model right now. So the model is successfully initiated. Now let me test this model on different prompts. Let me go to the first question, which is a logical reasoning based question. So the question says if 20 shirts take 10 hours to dry, how much time will 100 shirts take? Ideally it should take 10 hours only, but let us see what will be the output from this model. We have the output. The answer is 10 hours. So it is actually giving a correct answer and explanation, so which is right. So it got 1 out of 1 correct. Now let me go to the second question where I want to test writing abilities of this model. I just asked this model to write an email in Shakespeare style to Elon Musk to stop tweeting. So let us see how it structures this. We do have the output and it writes a neat subject, good sir Elon, and it actually gives something. So which is quite elaborative, and it seems like it is written by Shakespeare, so I can give it that. So we have 2 questions. It got 2 out of 2 right. Now let me go to the next question, which is the code generation task. So I ask it to create a snake game in Python, in Pygame. So let us see if it can create a game in one shot. We do have the code output ready, so we see that it has returned the entire game. So I've just copy pasted the code in my code editor. Let us actually see if it is running or not. So let me just run the command. Yeah, we actually have a snake game, and let's see if I can play. So I'm able to play. Okay, wonderful. So this is actually working. So it gave the code in the first try itself. So so far it has got 3 out of 3 questions right. Now let me go to the second question, which is let me go to the fourth question, which is about critical thinking. So I asked, how would you teach concept of colors to a blind person? So let us see the output. We do have the output, and let me just try to read few lines. So teaching colors to a blind person is a fascinating and creative challenge. Since blind individuals rely on other senses to perceive the world, we need to use innovative methods to convey the concept of colors. So with texture boxes, soundscapes, color identification, so on. So it gives a pretty decent output, so I'll give that one. And the last question is related to language proficiency. It was mentioned in the release document that it is actually a multilingual model. So let us see if it can speak good Hindi or not. So I've asked it to explain some core concepts of Bhagavad Gita in Hindi. So let us see if it is able to write some good Hindi text around this. Okay, we do have the output, and it actually gives a very well formatted response, and the grammar also seems to be right. I think I can give this one too. So it got 5 out of 5 right. So this is actually crazy that we have a open source model which is so good, and that anyone can download and use it. The link to this notebook will be available in the comments, so you can clone this notebook and test this model on your own prompts. Hope you enjoyed this video. See you again. Thank you.